Story. The Department of Justice reportedly preparing a new investigation into Hillary Clinton's lengthy pattern of mishandling national security and breaking the law, it is alleged. The focus on her use of a private email server while she served as Secretary of State certainly amounts to evidence. It follows reports that congressional investigators do have evidence that the FBI believes laws were broken. There's also new evidence. Former FBI Director James Comey leaked classified documents. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley has seen 4 classified Comey memorandum. It appears Comey sent at least one of those to a professor friend of his shortly after his firing. And House investigators and the Justice Department have reached a deal to provide records on the discredited Fusion GPS dossier. They will have access to all records and witnesses, including Peter Strzok, Bruce Orr, Lisa Page, all set to testify before the committee this month. And this news just breaking. A federal judge has ruled that the House Intelligence Committee is entitled to Fusion GPS bank records linked to the funding of the dossier and to considerable mischief, as it appears, in the so-called collusion scandal. Our first guest tonight revealing shocking new details concerning Hillary Clinton's email system, that illicit system identifying at least 18 classified emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Weiner, of course, once married to Clinton aide Uma Abedin. Joining us now, Chris Farrell, Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. That's the organization which has successfully filed a Freedom of Information Act request to release these very documents. Chris, first of all, congratulations on getting these documents and all of the work that Judicial Watch is doing. Now, when we talk about classified, these are not unclassified documents. These are, in fact, classified at the time they were transacting on the email server of Mrs. Clinton at home.
That is correct, Lou, and thanks. It's very important that distinction be made. These records and documents were classified at the time that they were produced and transmitted. They are not so-called retroactively classified. That's a smokescreen and a red herring. They were classified when they were written, they were classified when they were transmitted, and they were classified when they were resident on the Weiner laptop.
And the FBI investigators presumably knew that, did they not? They just didn't share it with the public.
Absolutely. And I have a tidbit concerning Mr. Grassley and the Comey memos. I may be jumping ahead a bit, but this is important.
Jump in any direction you want here.
We have a sworn declaration from David Hardy, who is the Chief FOIA Officer of the FBI, that we obtained just in the last few days. And in that sworn declaration, Mr. Hardy says that all of Comey's memos, all of them, were classified at the time they were written, and they remain classified. So the kind of open question from Mr. Grassley about, is it 4 of 7, or what time were they?
Right.
No, we have a sworn declaration from the Chief FOIA Officer of the FBI. They were classified at the time that Comey wrote them.
And while that may not be determinate, I suppose at some point forward in litigation, should it come to that, it is determined in the case of FOIA and gives us a clear understanding, it would seem, the thinking of the FBI as to the level of classification for all of those memoranda.
Well, it's also mishandling of national defense information, right, which is a crime. So it's clear that Mr. Comey not only authored those documents, but then knowingly and willfully leaked them to persons unauthorized, which is in and of itself a national security crime. Mr. Comey should have been read his rights back on June 8th when he testified before the Senate.
And he has not been read his rights yet. He has not been charged yet. Who would be the charging party? Would it be the FBI itself?
Well, the Attorney General of the United States and the Department of Justice would actually bring an indictment once they impanel a grand jury. But the investigative process, of course, will be conducted by the FBI.
And the FBI that he once led has to be furious that he has sullied the name of the storied agency that he has led the FBI in its most politicized, I think it's fair to say. One thought that the J. Edgar Hoover days, parts of those years were highly politicized, but it's beginning to look as nothing touched the FBI during the Obama years.
The recently retired and active duty FBI agents have told me, and it's several of them, they consider Comey to be a dirty cop.
A dirty cop, and one who is certainly pious as he talks about how to...
his tweets with Bible verses and haikus or whatever else he's been writing recently. and the laudable photography that he has committed out in the Midwest. The list goes on. Let's turn to the Intel Committee. I took it that Devin Nunes, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, actually was somewhat, that the Speaker, Paul Ryan, thumbed his nose at the chairman when he met with the head of, with Rod Rosenstein to discuss what would be produced. We're seeing that smooth out a bit here today as Nunes has been brought into the conversation. Your thoughts about how that demand for documents and testimony has proceeded and where it's going now? Well, yesterday's event where Director Wray and Deputy AG Rosenstein went up on the Hill to meet with the Speaker, it was a staged event, right? This was all very deliberate. And unfortunately, Chairman Nunes was really treated rather poorly in my view. He was excluded from the meeting. Yeah. Which is an extraordinary insult to the man who issued the subpoenas in the first place.
Yeah, could I interject there too, Chris? It's also an insult to the man whose committee has actually, to this point, produced more compelling evidence involving knocking down the collusion allegations, the nonsense that we've had to endure here for some time, and this administration has had to endure. He has created real results from investigation and shared it with the public to this point, a considerable amount of it. So he and his committee deserve great credit, not to be insulted by the Speaker or anyone else.
Correct, and he was unjustly smeared in this phony ethics complaint against him. Oh, yeah. And so now, the Speaker negotiates some sort of an agreement. Purportedly, the word all shows up somewhere. It's a head scratcher. I'm not entirely convinced of what was done, but I do know that excluding the chairman who issued the subpoena was a pretty gross insult to him. But I guess they're all on board now, but I'm sure there was some negotiation about that.
Yeah, and shame on the Speaker for his conduct and for his attitude. He aligned himself for 24 hours with the deep state, the permanent government, if you will, the administrative state, represented by Rosenstein and others at the top of justice. It's sickening. Let me turn to Grassley and your point about the 7 memos of Comey's. If they're all classified, why aren't charges forthcoming? Why isn't this Justice Department moving right now against the former FBI director?
Yeah, here's another case where there's disparity of treatment under the law. Laws are for the little people, and any other federal government employee who generated 7 classified memos and then leaked any number of them would have been hammered. Again, let's go back to the sailor on the submarine the president spoke of. This is so insulting to so many people in law enforcement, the intelligence community, the armed forces. They know how they would be treated. And so this is the disparity of treatment, the notion of equal justice under the law is harmed every day this slides by.
As you know, Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, two of the most distinguished Republican congresmen on Capitol Hill, demanding that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, either perform his duties or get the hell out of the office. The practicality of it, from your point of view, can that happen? Should it happen? Will it happen?
I'm glad that they joined me. Back on 15th of November, I said the same thing to you on air, and I can tell you that they may be a little slow in getting to the point, but I'm glad that they have. And while I respect Mr. Sessions personally, he's been neutralized, and so he either needs to really step up the game and take affirmative action in a public way to reassure the public, and frankly the president, that he's going to be tough on lawbreakers, or he needs to get out of the way.
Should the president fire him?
I don't know that firing is necessarily, the immediate task.
But somebody's got to be running that Justice Department who is not otherwise aligned, and I think it's fair to say now that Rod Rosenstein is otherwise aligned. Certainly there are many in the FBI and the Justice Department. We know their names now, and there are a large number of names. That place needs to be cleaned out. The top floor of the FBI as well as the Justice Department.
You're right, you are correct. It's ripe with subversion. And really, there needs to be, I think, I don't want to call it an ultimatum, that's too strong a word, but there needs to be a heart-to-heart, let's say, and either it's, take open, aggressive law enforcement action or get out of the way.